The stars looked different from this side of the galaxy. Commander Vexra stood on the bridge of his warship watching the blue and green planet spin slowly below. Earth. That was what the creatures down there called their world. 3 months of travel had brought his fleet to this remote corner of space, and now the prize hung before them like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. Vexra was a tall being, even for his kind. His silver skin reflected the soft lights of the command center, and his 4 eyes tracked every display screen at once. The Veltari were good at war. They had proven this across 47 worlds. Each time the pattern was the same. Find a world with primitive people, study them, strike fast, rule them, simple and effective. His tactical officer Nimco moved beside him, his 3-fingered hands dancing over the control panel. Nimco was younger, more eager. This was only his 3rd conquest. He still found excitement in the work that Vexra had long since grown tired of. "Initial scans are complete, Commander," Nimco said. His voice carried that familiar tone of satisfaction. "The inhabitants have nuclear weapons, but nothing that can reach orbit. Their detection systems are crude. They have not noticed our presence," Vexra nodded. It was always the same. These young civilizations played with fire, but never looked up to see what watched them from the darkness. Population? 8 billion spread across 7 major landmasses. Thousands of cities. Heavy industrial development. They are consuming their planet's resources at an alarming rate. Nimco paused, his eyes scanning the data. They call themselves humans. Military assessment? Fragmented. They have nearly 200 separate political units, many with standing armies. They fight among themselves frequently. Coordination appears minimal. Standard projectile weapons, explosive devices, armored vehicles. Nothing we have not seen before. Vexra allowed himself a small gesture of satisfaction. His people had developed energy weapons 3,000 years ago. Humans were still throwing metal at each other. The invasion would be over in days, perhaps hours. Biological concerns? Nimco checked another screen. Carbon-based life forms, oxygen breathers, standard temperature tolerance. They should pose no unusual challenges. The science team requests permission to deploy surface probes for detailed analysis. Granted. Follow standard protocols. I want data on their major population centers, military installations, and resource deposits. We strike in 10 solar rotations. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Vexra had trained them well. Within the hour, a dozen small probes detached from the fleet, their cloaking fields making them invisible to human technology. They scattered across the planet's surface like seeds carried by wind. Vexra watched the probe feeds appear on the main display. One probe descended toward a massive city of glass and steel towers. Millions of humans moved through narrow streets, packed together like insects in a hive. Another probe approached a military base where armored vehicles sat in neat rows. Primitive but organized. A third probe examined what appeared to be agricultural land, vast fields of crops stretching to the horizon. Everything looked exactly as expected. Vexra began planning the landing zones in his mind. The capital cities would fall first. Cut off the heads of their governments and the body would collapse. It had worked on every other world. Then Nimco made a sound of confusion. "Commander, Probe 7 is showing an anomaly." Vexra turned his attention to that feed. The probe had descended over a vast expanse of sand. Desert stretched in every direction, golden dunes rolling like frozen waves. The temperature reading made Vexra's skin itch. 52 degrees. Hot enough to kill most Veltari in hours without protective equipment. "What is the anomaly?" Vexra asked, a single human. On foot, no vehicle, no visible shelter. Nimco adjusted the probe's sensors. "The human appears to be walking." Vexra studied the feed. The human was indeed walking across the desert. It wore minimal clothing, just enough to cover its body. A small pack rested on its back. Nothing else. No environmental suit. No cooling system. Just flesh and fabric against that brutal heat. Sensor malfunction, Vexra decided. No creature would attempt to cross that terrain without proper equipment. But Nimco was already checking the probe systems. "All sensors functioning normally, Commander. Life signs are strong. The human is alive and moving at a steady pace." Vexra moved closer to the screen. This made no sense. The Veltari needed controlled environments. Temperatures above 30 degrees required cooling suits. Below 15 degrees required heating units. This human was walking through heat that should boil its blood, wearing nothing but thin cloth. Perhaps it is a machine. Vexra suggested. A robot designed to look like them. Nimco zoomed in the probe's cameras. They could see the human clearly now. Sweat poured down its face. Its chest moved with steady breathing. Its feet struck the sand with rhythmic steps. Biological, Commander. Definitely biological. Look at the thermal signature. It is generating heat, not just absorbing it. Vexra watched for several minutes. The human never stopped, never slowed, just kept walking through that hellish landscape as if it were an afternoon stroll through a garden. The sun beat down without mercy. The sand radiated stored heat. Any Veltari would be dead by now. Follow it, Vexra ordered. I want continuous observation. Commander, should we not focus on the military installations? The invasion planning will wait. Something is wrong here. Protocol demands we understand any anomalies before proceeding. Nimco obeyed, directing the probe to maintain position above the human. The other probes continued their surveys of cities and bases, feeding data back to the fleet. But Vexra found his attention locked on Probe 7. On this single human crossing an impossible desert, hours passed. The human kept walking. The sun climbed higher and the temperature rose. 53 degrees, 54. The human's pace slowed slightly, but it did not stop. It drank from a container in its pack, small sips of water. Then it continued. Vexra felt something unfamiliar stirring in his mind. Not quite fear, not yet, but concern, unease. This was not normal behavior. This was not how prey species acted. Prey species ran from danger. They sought comfort and safety. They did not walk into furnaces and smile, and the human was smiling. The probe's cameras caught it clearly. Despite the heat, despite the exhaustion visible in every movement, the human's face showed determination and even joy. What is it doing? Nimco whispered. Why would any creature do this? Vexra had no answer. He stood on the bridge of the most powerful warship in this sector of space, commanding technology that could level cities, and he had no answer for why one human was walking through a desert. The invasion timeline was set for 10 solar rotations. But as Vexra watched that lone figure trudge across the burning sand, he began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake coming here. The human's name, they would later learn, was Deho, and he was just the beginning. Deho had been walking for 6 hours when the sun reached its highest point. The heat was intense, the kind that made the air shimmer and dance above the sand. Every breath burned his lungs slightly, but he had trained for this. His body knew what to do. Above him, invisible and silent, the probe watched. On the warship, Vexra had called in his science officer. Ralsei was old, even by Veltari standards. She had studied hundreds of species across dozens of worlds. If anyone could explain this human's behavior, it would be her. Remarkable, Ralsei said, her eyes studying the displays. Truly remarkable. Explain it to me, Vexra demanded. How is this creature still alive? Ralsei pointed to the thermal readings. Look at this. The human's core body temperature is rising, yes, but slowly. Much more slowly than it should. That liquid covering its skin, do you see it? Sweat, Nimco said, reading from the biological database. A cooling mechanism. Water is secreted through pores in the skin. As it evaporates, it draws heat away from the body. Primitive but effective, Ralsei said. But there is more. Watch how the human breathes. Shallow, rapid breaths. It is cooling the blood in its lungs with each breath. And the blood itself, look at the oxygen saturation levels. Much higher than ours. The human can carry more oxygen in its blood, which means more energy for longer periods. Vexra stared at the numbers. This is normal for humans? Apparently so. The database shows this is standard human physiology. They evolved this way. Ralsei pulled up a comparison chart. Commander, a Veltari in that environment would be dead within 2 hours. Our cooling systems would fail. Our blood would begin to coagulate. Brain function would cease, and the human has been walking for 6 hours and shows no signs of stopping. Vexra felt that unease growing stronger. He looked at the probe feed again. Deho was drinking water, small measured amounts. His face was red from the sun, his lips cracked and dry, but his eyes remained focused on the horizon. He capped his water bottle and resumed walking. How much water is the human carrying? Vexra asked. Nimco did quick calculations based on the pack size. 4 liters, perhaps 5. At most. That should not be enough for even 1 day in those conditions. No, Commander. It should not. The afternoon dragged on. The human kept walking. The probe's sensors tracked every step, every breath, every heartbeat. Vexra found himself unable to look away. There was something hypnotic about watching this creature push itself through such harsh conditions. At one point, Deho stumbled. His foot caught on a rock hidden beneath the sand and he fell to his knees. Vexra leaned forward, expecting the human to give up, to activate some kind of rescue beacon, to show sense and call for help. Instead, Deho knelt there for maybe 30 seconds. Then he pushed himself up, brushed sand from his knees, and continued walking. No hesitation. No complaint. Just determination. Pull up the planetary data, Vexra ordered. I want to know about this desert. Nimco worked quickly. The Sahara Desert. 9 million square kilometers of mostly sand and rock. Average annual rainfall less than 3 centimeters. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 50 degrees. Considered one of the harshest environments on the planet. And humans live there? Some small populations around the edges. But mostly it is empty. Then why is this human walking through it? Nimco searched through intercepted human communications. He found something and displayed it. It appears to be a challenge. An athletic event. The human is attempting to cross 250 kilometers in 5 days. Vexra repeated the word slowly. An athletic event. This human is walking through a killing field for sport? That appears to be correct, Commander. Rousey made a thoughtful sound. How interesting. This suggests the human does not view this environment as particularly dangerous. Challenging, yes, but not deadly. But it is deadly, Vexra said. By any reasonable standard, this is a lethal environment. By our standards, yes, but perhaps not by human standards. The sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple. The temperature started to drop. Vexra watched the numbers fall. 50 degrees, 45, 40. Still hot by Veltari standards, but manageable. Then the temperature kept falling. 35, 30, 25. How cold does this desert get at night? Vexra asked, though he already suspected the answer. Near freezing, Commander. Sometimes below. Vexra watched in growing disbelief as the temperature plummeted. Within 2 hours of sunset, it had dropped to 5 degrees. The human had stopped walking and made a simple camp. No heat source. No thermal shelter. Just a thin sleeping bag and a small fire made from dried plants. This is impossible, Vexra said. The same creature that survived 54 degrees is now surviving 5 degrees. The temperature swing alone should kill it. But Deho seemed unconcerned. He ate a simple meal, made some notes on a small device, and settled into his sleeping bag. The probe's infrared sensor showed his body heat, a warm glow in the cold desert night. Rousey was busy pulling up more data. Commander, I am finding something disturbing. Let me show you Earth's climate zones. She displayed a global map. The planet has extreme temperature variations. The poles reach minus 50 degrees. The equator reaches plus 50 degrees. And humans live in all of these zones. That is a 100-degree range, Nimco said quietly. Yes. And look at this. Humans do not have specialized subspecies for different climates. The same human that lives in Arctic conditions can move to desert conditions and survive. They adapt. Their bodies adjust. Vexra thought of his own people. The Veltari had a comfortable range of about 15 degrees. Below that, they needed heating. Above that, they needed cooling. A 100-degree range was not survival. It was something else entirely. What kind of planet creates creatures like this? He asked. Rousey pulled up more data. A harsh one. Look at the atmospheric composition. 21% oxygen. That is extremely high. It makes everything more flammable, more reactive, more dangerous. The gravity is 1.2 times what we consider standard. The tectonic activity causes frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The weather systems produce storms that would tear our ships from the sky. She paused, scrolling through more information. And the biology. Commander, Earth is full of deadly organisms. Bacteria that can kill in hours. Viruses that spread like fire. Parasites that eat their hosts from inside. Venomous creatures. Poisonous plants. Predators with crushing jaws and tearing claws. And humans survived all of this? Not just survived, thrived. They are the dominant species. They have spread to every corner of their planet. They have no natural predators. Vexra looked back at the probe feed. Deho was sleeping now, his breathing slow and steady. The fire had burned down to embers. The temperature was still dropping. What have we found here? Vexra asked, more to himself than to the others. Rousey answered anyway. I believe, Commander, that we have found a death world, and the humans are its children. The word hung in the air. Deathworld. It was a classification Vexra had only seen a few times in his career. Planets so hostile that they were marked as quarantine zones, places where no sane species would ever try to live. But humans had not just tried. They had succeeded. Vexra made a decision. Deploy more probes. I want observations of humans in every climate zone on this planet. Mountains, jungles, frozen wastelands, oceans, everything. If this human is typical, I need to know. If it is exceptional, I need to know that too. And the invasion timeline? Nimco asked. Vexra watched Deho sleep in the cold desert night. Postponed. We do not move until we understand what we are dealing with. Below, unaware of the eyes watching from space, Deho dreamed of finishing his journey. He had 200 more kilometers to go. The Veltari were beginning to understand they had made a terrible mistake. The probes spread across Earth like invisible spies. Each one found humans doing things that made the Veltari more and more nervous. In the mountains of Asia, Probe 3 tracked a human named Tai Min. He was climbing a massive peak that humans called Everest. The mountain reached over 8,000 meters into the sky, so high that the air became thin and weak. The oxygen level was less than half of what existed at sea level. Nimco watched Tai Min pull himself up a nearly vertical wall of ice. This is madness. At that altitude, we would need pressure suits and oxygen tanks. The human has an oxygen tank, Ralsei pointed out. See the mask on his face? Yes, but it is tiny. And he is climbing, doing hard physical work in conditions that should make him pass out. Nimco checked the readings. His blood oxygen saturation is at 85%. That would cause brain damage in a Veltari, possibly death, but Tai Min kept climbing. His movements were slow and deliberate, but he never stopped. When he reached a narrow ledge, he rested for exactly 5 minutes. Then he continued upward. The probe followed him for 3 days as he ascended that impossible mountain. On the 3rd day, Tai Min reached the summit. He stood at the top of the world where the air was so thin it could barely be called air at all, and he raised his arms in victory. Then he took pictures. Actual pictures like this was a tourist destination instead of a place that violated every rule of survival. How is his brain still functioning? Nimco asked. Ralsei studied the medical data. The human body adapts, look here. His red blood cell count has increased during the climb. His body is making more cells to carry oxygen. It is compensating for the thin air. In 3 days? Apparently so. Meanwhile, Probe 8 was tracking someone very different. Hana was her name, and she lived in a place called Siberia. The probe had arrived during what humans called winter. The temperature was -40 degrees. Vexra had seen cold worlds before. His people avoided them. Cold slowed everything down. Cold made equipment fail. Cold killed. Hana walked out of her home wearing thick clothing but no environmental suit. No heating system. Just layers of animal fur and plant fiber. She walked to a frozen river, broke through the ice with a metal tool and pulled up water in a bucket. Then she walked back to her home. She is outside for almost 30 minutes, Vexra observed. In -40-degree weather. Yes, Commander, and she is not dying. No, Commander. In fact, the thermal sensors show she is generating significant body heat. Her core temperature remains at 37 degrees throughout. Vexra watched Hana go about her daily tasks. Chopping wood. Feeding animals. Clearing snow from pathways. All in cold that would kill a Veltari in minutes. She even seemed comfortable, stopping occasionally to wipe sweat from her forehead. Sweat, Vexra said. In -40 degrees, she is generating so much heat that she is sweating. Human metabolisms are remarkably efficient, Commander. They can burn stored fat to generate heat. They can shiver to produce warmth. They have multiple systems to maintain temperature. Probe 11 found Sungho in the Amazon rainforest. This environment was different but equally hostile. The temperature was comfortable by human standards, around 30 degrees. But the humidity was crushing. 90%. The Veltari sensors detected thousands of different species of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites in every cubic meter of air. Sungho walked through this toxic soup without any protection. No filter mask. No sterilization field. Just his bare skin exposed to everything. He will be infected within hours, Nimco predicted. But hours passed and Sungho remained healthy. He drank water from a stream, water that contained microorganisms that the Veltari database flagged as dangerous. He ate fruits picked directly from trees. He slept on the ground where insects crawled and fungi grew. His immune system, Rousey explained, is extraordinary. Look at these readings. His body is constantly fighting off infections. Hundreds of them. Every second of every day, his immune system kills foreign organisms. And it wins. Every second? Vexra asked. Every second. The human body is a battlefield, Commander, and the human always wins. The most disturbing probe report came from the ocean. Probe 5 had found Jiwoo, a free diver. Free diving, the Veltari learned, was when humans held their breath and descended deep underwater, without air tanks, without breathing equipment, just their lungs full of air and their will to survive. Jiwoo dove down into the blue water. 10 meters, 20, 30. The pressure increased with every meter. The Veltari hull specifications rated their ships to withstand underwater pressure up to 50 meters. Jiwoo passed 50 meters and kept going. 60, 70, 80. This is impossible, Nimco said, which was becoming his most common phrase. The pressure at 80 meters would crush our bones. How is he not dead? Rousey pointed to the medical scanner. The human body is adapting in real time. His lungs are compressing. His heart rate is slowing. Blood is being shunted away from his extremities to protect his vital organs. He is essentially shutting down non-essential systems to survive. Jiwoo reached 90 meters and hung there in the water, suspended in the blue darkness. The pressure at that depth was 10 times normal atmospheric pressure. He stayed down for 3 minutes. 3 minutes without breathing. Then he swam back up. Slowly, carefully letting his body adjust. When he broke the surface, he took a deep breath and smiled. He is smiling, Vexra said. He nearly died and he is smiling. I believe, Commander, that humans do not view these activities as near-death experiences. They view them as challenges. Entertainment, even. Vexra called an emergency meeting. The command staff gathered in the briefing room. Screens showed feeds from all the probes. Daeho still walking through the desert now on his 4th day. Taemin descending from his mountain. Hana living in her frozen wasteland. Sungho thriving in his toxic jungle. Jiwoo diving again, chasing some kind of sea creature. These cannot be their best specimens, Vexra said. These must be specially trained soldiers or enhanced individuals. But Rousey shook her head. I have analyzed thousands of human communications. These activities are called recreation, hobbies, things humans do for fun. She pulled up more data. Millions of humans engage in what they call extreme sports. Running long distances, climbing mountains, swimming in cold water. They have competitions to see who can endure the most. Competitions, Vexra repeated. They compete to see who can best survive death. Yes, Commander, Nimco spoke up. I have been reviewing human history. Their wars are particularly instructive. He displayed battlefield footage captured from human satellites and cameras. Look at this. Humans fighting in desert heat, in mountain cold, in jungle humidity. They adapt to every environment and continue fighting. The footage showed human soldiers carrying enormous amounts of equipment, 40 kilograms or more. They carried this weight while running, climbing, and fighting for days, sometimes weeks, and look at their casualties, Nimco continued. Even when injured, humans often continue fighting. There are documented cases of humans surviving wounds that should be instantly fatal, losing limbs and continuing to give orders, being shot multiple times and still advancing. Vexra watched a human soldier running through smoke and fire. The soldier's armor was primitive compared to Veltari technology. But the human inside that armor was something else, something that did not stop, did not quit, did not surrender. Rousey brought up the final piece of evidence. Commander, I have completed the planetary classification. Earth is a Class 12 death world. The room went silent. Class 12 was the highest danger rating in the Galactic Confederation database. It was reserved for planets that were actively hostile to life. Planets where simply existing required constant struggle. The gravity is 30% higher than Confederation standard. Rousey continued. The atmospheric oxygen level is dangerously high. The temperature range is extreme. The tectonic activity is severe. The weather systems are violent. The microbial life is aggressive and diverse, and every other species on the planet is either toxic, venomous, or predatory. She paused. Humans did not evolve to conquer their world. They evolved to survive it, and survival shaped them into something we have never encountered before. Back in the desert, Daeho reached his 5th day. He had walked 250 kilometers through heat and cold. through pain and exhaustion. His water was nearly gone. His food was gone. His body was damaged in dozens of small ways, but he finished. He crossed his final checkpoint and stood there in the rising sun, tired but triumphant. The probe watched him celebrate. A small celebration. Just a fist raised to the sky and a whispered word. Yes. Then Dae-Ho pulled out his communication device and called someone to pick him up. While he waited, he sat on the sand and began planning his next adventure. Vexra turned away from the screens. How do we invade a world full of creatures like this? Nobody had an answer. The war room aboard the flagship had never been so tense. Vexra sat at the head of the long table while his senior officers argued about what to do with Earth. We should proceed with the invasion, Kolva said. She was the senior strategist, a veteran of 20 conquests. Yes, the humans are physically impressive, but they are still primitive. They have no energy weapons, no force fields, no faster-than-light travel. We have all of these things. Physical impressiveness is not the issue, Yura countered. She was the intelligence officer, quieter than Kolva but sharper. The issue is what those physical traits mean for invasion planning. Explain, Vexra ordered. Yura stood and activated the central display. It showed a Veltari soldier next to a human soldier. Our troops are trained for combat in controlled environments. Temperature between 20 and 30 degrees. Standard gravity. Clean air. When we invade other worlds, we bring our environment with us. Environmental suits. Climate-controlled bases. Filtered air systems. She highlighted the human. Humans do not need any of this. They can fight in any environment on their planet, which means they can fight in any environment we find comfortable. More importantly, we cannot fight in any environment they find comfortable. We have superior weapons, Kolva insisted. Do we? Yura pulled up footage of human military exercises. Look at this human training program. They call it basic training, which means every soldier goes through it. Watch. The footage showed young humans running long distances while carrying heavy equipment, climbing walls, crawling through mud, marching for hours, all while instructors shouted at them, pushing them harder. This is just the basic training, Yura said. Every human soldier can do this. Now compare it to our training. She showed Veltari military training. It looked soft in comparison. Gentler, shorter. The Veltari soldiers were competent, but they were not being pushed to their limits. They were being trained to operate equipment and follow orders. Human soldiers are being trained to endure, Yura continued, to suffer and continue functioning. Pain is part of their training. Exhaustion is expected. They are taught that surrender is not an option. Kolva shifted uncomfortably. This is psychological warfare. Trying to intimidate us? No, Rousey said from her seat. This is simply how humans are. Let me show you something else. She pulled up medical records captured from human databases. These are injury reports from human wars. Look at this one. A human soldier lost his leg to an explosive device. He applied a tourniquet to stop the bleeding, then continued giving orders to his unit for 3 hours before accepting medical evacuation. She scrolled to another report. This one was shot 4 times. 4 times. He remained conscious and killed 3 enemy soldiers before collapsing, and he survived. This one jumped on an explosive device to protect other soldiers. He knew it would kill him. He did it anyway. Report after report showed the same pattern. Humans enduring impossible injuries, fighting through pain that should shut down their nervous systems, sacrificing themselves for their units. This is their normal behavior, Rousey said. Not exceptional, normal. Nimco had been researching human history. Now he added his findings. The historical records are even more disturbing. Humans have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history, thousands of wars, and they have never stopped innovating. He showed a timeline. 200 years ago, they fought with simple metal weapons and black powder explosives. 100 years ago, they developed automatic weapons and armored vehicles. 50 years ago, they created nuclear weapons capable of destroying entire cities. And today? Vexra asked. Today they have weapons that can strike anywhere on their planet within hours. They have autonomous drones, cyber warfare capabilities, biological research that could produce devastating plagues, and they are still innovating. Every year their weapons become more sophisticated. They are also still fighting each other, Kolva pointed out. Divided into competing nations. That is a weakness we can exploit. Yura shook her head. I thought so too. But look at human history more carefully. Whenever they face an external threat, they unify. During their second global war, Nations that had been enemies for centuries joined together to fight a common enemy. It took them 4 years, but they won. She pulled up the casualty numbers from that war. 70 million dead. 70 million. And they kept fighting. They lost entire cities to fire and atomic weapons. They kept fighting. Their soldiers died in millions. They kept fighting. The room went quiet. What kind of species does that? Nimco asked quietly. A Deathworld species, Rousey answered. A species that evolved knowing that stopping means death. That quitting is not survival. Every human alive is the descendant of humans who refuse to give up. For millions of years, their world killed the weak ones, the soft ones, the ones who surrendered. Only the stubborn ones survived. Only the relentless ones passed on their genes. Vexra felt something cold settling in his chest. You are saying they have been naturally selected for war. Not war specifically, for survival. But survival on a death world requires the same traits needed for war: endurance, pain tolerance, aggression, cooperation with their own kind against external threats, willingness to die for the group. Kolva tried one more time. They still have primitive technology. Our ships can bombard them from orbit. They cannot reach us. Not yet, Yura said. But they will. Look at their space programs. She showed footage of human rockets launching. They started this 60 years ago. 60 years, and they have already sent humans to their moon. They have machines on other planets in their solar system. They are developing reusable rockets and planning missions to establish permanent bases. At their current rate of progress, they will have serious spaceflight capability within 50 years, maybe less. 50 years is a long time, Kolva said, is it? Yura asked. 50 years from now, what will we face? Humans with our technology. Humans who can survive in environments we cannot. Humans who do not surrender. We would have to destroy their entire planet to ensure victory. Genocide. And even then, if any humans escape, if any colonies survive, they will come for us. They will hunt us. They will never stop. Vexra thought about Daeho walking through the desert, about Tae-Min climbing that mountain, about all the humans pushing themselves to their limits and beyond, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Show me their entertainment, Vexra said suddenly. Nimco looked confused. Their entertainment, Commander? Yes, what do humans do for fun? What are their stories about? Nimco pulled up human media. Movies, books, television shows. They have many genres. But the most popular ones seem to be about conflict. Heroes fighting against impossible odds. Underdog stories where the weak defeat the strong. Survival stories where characters endure terrible hardships and emerge victorious. He showed clips from human films. Soldiers fighting alien invaders, survivors of disasters clawing their way to safety, one person standing against an army and winning through determination. These are fantasies, Kolva said. Stories. Stories tell us what a culture values, Rousey said. Human stories value never giving up. They celebrate the ones who fight on when defeat seems certain. They make heroes of those who endure. Vexra watched a scene where a human character, battered and bleeding, stood up one more time to face an enemy. The character was clearly going to die. But they stood up anyway. This is what we would face, Vexra said quietly. Not just their military. All of them. Every human on that planet would resist. They would fight in their cities. In their homes. Parents would fight to protect their children. Children would grow up planning revenge. We would never have peace, he stood up. I have made a decision. We are not invading Earth. Kolva started to protest, but Vexra raised a hand to silence her. We are not invading because we cannot win. Oh, we could defeat their military. We could destroy their cities. We could kill billions of them. But we could not conquer them. They would never accept our rule. They would resist until we killed every last one of them, and that would make us monsters. He looked around the table at his officers. More importantly, what happens when they reach space? Because they will. Nothing will stop them. And when they do, they will be angry. They will remember what we did. And they will come for us with weapons and technology they do not have yet, but will develop specifically to kill us. So what do we do? Nimco asked. We leave. We mark their system as restricted space. And we hope that when they reach the stars, they remember we chose not to attack them. Kolva shook her head in disgust. The Confederation will see this as cowardice. Let them, Vexra said. I would rather be called a coward than be the commander who started a war with a Deathworld species. He looked at the screens one last time. Humans going about their lives. working, playing, surviving on their impossible planet. "We found Earth 10 solar rotations too late," he said. "We should have found them 1,000 years ago, before they developed technology. Or we should find them 1,000 years from now, when they are already among the stars and we can meet them as equals. But now they are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, a Deathworld species on the edge of spaceflight. We need to leave before they notice us." The meeting ended. The officers filed out, some agreeing, some still doubtful. The message to Confederation High Command took 3 days to reach the Central Authority. Vexra spent those 3 days reviewing every piece of data his fleet had collected, every probe recording, every analysis, every terrifying detail about the humans and their death world. When the response came back, it was exactly what he expected. High Command was not pleased. The communication came through on the secure channel. 5 members of the Confederation Council appeared on the screen, their faces showing various degrees of disappointment and anger. Commander Vexra, the lead counselor, said, "We have reviewed your recommendation. It is denied. You will proceed with the invasion as planned. Counselors, with respect, you have not seen what I have seen. We have seen your reports. Physical endurance does not equate to military superiority. The humans have primitive weapons. Your fleet has energy cannons and orbital strike capability. The invasion should be simple." Vexra had prepared for this. "Permission to show you something, counselors." Without waiting for approval, he began playing the compiled footage. Not just Deho in the desert. Everything. Hours of footage compressed into 30 minutes of the most disturbing examples of human capability. Humans climbing impossible cliffs without safety equipment. Humans running for days without stopping. Humans diving to depths that should crush their bodies. Humans working in heat that should boil their blood and cold that should freeze it. Then the military footage. Human soldiers training, fighting, enduring, dying and continuing to fight. The casualty reports. The injury survival rates. The absolute refusal to surrender even when defeat was certain. Finally, the planetary data. The temperature ranges. The atmospheric composition. The gravity. The microbial threats. The sheer hostility of Earth to any life form not born there. The counselors watched in silence. When the footage ended, none of them spoke for a long moment. "This is normal for them?" one counselor finally asked. "This is normal," Vexra confirmed. "These are not special forces. Not genetically enhanced super soldiers, just regular humans doing regular human things." "But they are divided," another counselor argued. "Their nations fight each other constantly. We could exploit those divisions." Yura stepped into the camera view. "Permission to speak, counselors?" Vexra nodded. "I have studied human history extensively," Yura said. "They do fight among themselves. But when faced with an external threat, they unify immediately. During their World War II, nations that had been enemies for centuries became allies in months. They combined their military forces, shared technology, and coordinated strategies across their entire planet." She pulled up more data. "And look at what happened after that war. The 2 main human powers spent the next 50 years in what they called a Cold War. They built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet 10 times over. They aimed these weapons at each other, ready to commit mutual annihilation. And," a counselor asked, "and when a small external object, an asteroid, threatened to hit their planet 20 years ago, those same powers immediately cooperated. They shared data, resources, and technology to destroy the asteroid. The threat of invasion would unite them far more effectively than any asteroid." Rousey added her analysis. "Counselors, I must emphasize the biological reality. Humans are Deathworld predators. Earth is a Class 12 environment. This classification exists in our database, but we have never encountered a species that evolved on a Class 12 world and achieved sentience." She let that sink in. Humans are the first. They are a scientific impossibility that exists anyway. And if we attack them, they will respond as all predators respond to threats. They will fight. Nimco pulled up casualty projections. "Based on human physiology and military capability, we estimate the invasion would require 3 times our current forces. Even then, victory would take years. Urban fighting alone would be catastrophic. Humans know their cities. They will defend every building, every street. We would have to level their major population centers entirely." "Then level them," a counselor said coldly. "To what end?" Vexra asked. "We level their cities. We kill billions. And then what?" The survivors will hate us forever. They will spend every waking moment planning revenge, and eventually they will reach space. Their technology progresses rapidly. In 50 years, perhaps less, they will have ships. They will hunt us across the stars. He leaned toward the camera. Counselors, I have commanded 47 successful invasions. I know how to conquer primitive worlds, but this is not a primitive world. This is a death world, and humans are death world survivors. Every instinct in their biology tells them to fight, to endure, to never surrender. We cannot conquer that. We can only destroy it completely or leave it alone. Complete destruction is always an option, the lead counselor said. Is it? Vexra asked. Complete destruction means genocide. It means killing every human on their planet, 8 billion sentient beings. The Confederation was founded on principles of peaceful expansion. When did we become exterminators? The counselors looked uncomfortable. Vexra pressed his advantage. And even if we commit genocide, are we certain we can succeed? Humans are already developing space stations. They have plans for colonies on their moon and neighboring planets. If even a few thousand humans survive our bombardment, if even one ship escapes, they will survive. They will rebuild. And they will remember. He showed them footage of Deho one more time. This human walked 250 kilometers through a desert. For sport, for fun, imagine that determination directed at revenge. Imagine a species that treats survival challenges as entertainment, suddenly facing an actual survival challenge. Us. Yura added the final argument. Counselors, our best strategic projection shows that if we invade Earth and survive the counterattack, humans will reach our homeworld within 100 years. They will develop faster than light travel specifically to find us. And when they arrive, they will not come as explorers. They will come as conquerors, because we taught them to fear aliens. We taught them that the galaxy is hostile. The counselors conferred among themselves, their audio muted. Vexra waited. His entire career rested on this moment. If they ordered the invasion, he would have to obey or face court-martial. Finally, the lead counselor spoke. Commander Vexra, your recommendation is approved. Earth will be classified as a death world with sentient inhabitants. Status: restricted contact. No Confederation vessel will approach within 50 light-years of their system. Vexra felt relief flood through him. However, the counselor continued, we want monitoring probes left in their system, hidden. We need to know when they achieve faster-than-light travel. When that happens, we will need to make contact quickly, offer alliance, friendship, make them see us as potential allies rather than threats. Understood, counselors. And Commander? When you return to Confederation space, you will give a full briefing on death worlds and their inhabitants. Other species need to know what we have found. The galaxy needs to know that humans exist. The communication ended. Vexra turned to his crew. Begin withdrawal procedures. Leave 10 probes in stealth orbits around their star system. Make sure they are completely undetectable. Then we go home. The fleet began preparations. Weapon systems were powered down. Engines were charged for the jump to faster-than-light speed. Within 6 hours, they would be gone. Vexra took one last walk through his ship. In the observation deck, he found Nimco staring at Earth. Beautiful planet, Nimco said quietly. Deadly planet, Vexra corrected. That too. Nimco turned to look at his commander. Do you think we made the right choice? I think we made the only choice that does not end with our extinction. The humans will reach space eventually. Yes. And when they do, we will be ready. We will greet them as friends. We will offer them membership in the Confederation. We will give them every reason to see us as allies. And if they refuse, Vexra thought about Deho, about Tai-Min and Hana and Sung-Ho and Jiwoo, about 8 billion humans living on their impossible world, pushing themselves to their limits every day just because they could. Then we stay out of their way, he said, and we hope they remember we had the wisdom to leave them alone. The jump alarm sounded. The crew moved to their stations. Vexra returned to the bridge and gave the order, take us home. Space bent around the fleet. Reality twisted. And in the span of a heartbeat, the Veltari warships were gone, leaving Earth behind. On the surface, humanity continued on, unaware of how close they had come to invasion. Unaware that they had been judged too dangerous to attack. Unaware that somewhere in their solar system, hidden probes watched and waited. Deho sat in his apartment in Seoul, scrolling through articles on his laptop. He had recovered from the desert crossing. His feet had healed. His skin had recovered from the sun damage. He felt good, strong, ready for the next challenge. He found what he was looking for and smiled. Antarctica, the frozen continent. Multiple expeditions crossed it every year, but Daeho wanted to do it solo. No support team, just him, his equipment, and 2 months of walking through the most hostile environment on Earth. He began making plans, calculating supplies, mapping routes, training schedules. Above him, invisible in orbit, a Veltari probe recorded everything. The data was compressed and sent via quantum entanglement to a monitoring station 3 light-years away.